When we request reparations, it's almost like they see it as we're asking for charity. Well, charity is a nuisance. When you think about reparations for Jews after the Holocaust, they awarded it, they said they were obligated to do so. When they talk about the Japanese who were in the Japanese internment camps during World War II, they gave them reparations and they said it was an obligation to do so. And then even the Native Americans, when they gave them the casinos, they said that was an obligation to repair the harm. But who they have never given reparations to in the United States of America is the descendants of Africa.
Today, I'm in Accra at the Kempinski Hotel with one of the most influential civil rights attorneys in America, Ben Crump. He's the man behind some of the biggest justice fights of our generation, from George Floyd to record-breaking verdicts. And I'm asking the questions many people avoid. Is America reformable?
In the next 50 years, Africa will be the center of the universe in every way.
Or is it time for Black people to build power on the continent?
Once you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions.
We'll talk injustice, civil rights, reparation, and why he's in Ghana right now. Let's go.
It's an honor to be sitting right here with one of the giants of civil rights movement, somebody that's fighting for Black lives. When I was reading and listening to some of the interviews before us sitting down this morning, was that you're a person of faith.
Yes.
You are somebody that is fighting for Black lives, Black liberty, and Black humanity.
Yes, ma'am.
1619, when the first Black slave came to America, it's like we haven't stopped fighting.
Yes.
Why is Black people still going through the same torture?
I went to Cape Coast yesterday with a lot of my colleagues who had never been to Africa or Ghana, and as I relived the experience of what they did to our ancestors, I mean, the crimes, the injustices, the just total inhumanity inflicted upon our ancestors, it reminded me, Lady Denta, of why we have had to fight since 1619. Because when they came and they stole us from Mother Africa, they had no respect for Africa or its children then. And in many regards, we're still fighting for that respect today. And so we have to continue to be vigilant and understand that all descendants from Africa must make the rest of the world respect Africa. Because if they don't respect Africa, they will respect nothing that comes from Africa. And so our continued struggle is one in the same, whether you're on the continent or whether you're at any part of the diaspora. Okay. And that's why I'm here primarily to discuss these issues of reparations for Africa and the diaspora, as well as racial justice, to document, address, and get accountability for the racial injustice that has been inflicted on Africa's children.
Ben, do you ever think we'll get reparations?
I do, because I believe the DNA that goes through our bodies from our ancestors, we come from a people that have always overcome. I tell people, just based on the history I know most about African Americans, when, the nation was first formed, we were defined as 3/5 of a human being, but yet we overcame that.
Yeah.
We survived the most genocidal dynamic, I believe, ever known in the course of human history, the Middle Passage.
Yeah.
And we overcame that. And then the United States Supreme Court proclaimed in the Dred Scott decision that there were no rights that a black man had that a white man was bound to respect. But yet we overcame that. After the Civil War that was supposed to have freed us from slavery and made us full citizens, we then had to encounter Reconstruction and the 40 acres and a mule lie, and we overcame that.
Okay.
And then you had Jim Crow and Jim Crow Jr., and we overcame that. And then you had in the 1940s and 50s, you had the lynchings and the kidnapping and the battle to take us back from the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments that gave us the right to vote, that saw the birth of Martin Luther King and so many others, Congressman John Lewis. And yet, as many times as they tried to keep us down, we overcame that too. So what that tells me, Lady Denta, there is nothing that the enemies of equality can do to keep us down. We rise, we rise, we rise. We came through slavery, and they said we would never gain our independence from slavery, but we did. Segregation, sitting in the back of the bus. They said we would never be able to achieve equality and equal access to the vote, and we did. And so when we talk about reparations, I say that our people are accustomed to doing what they claim is impossible. And so I tell my children and our young people, the next generation, that just like we were able to achieve those landmark victories, we will get reparations in this generation or yours, but be confident we will reclaim what is rightfully due to us.
I love that. Ben, anytime that I've heard you speak, I get goosebumps. I hear the passion in your voice. Listening to one of your interviews, you wanted to become a lawyer when you were in 4th grade. What made you want to be a lawyer?
Certainly. And as I was at your conference in Barbados, we actually had so much passion talking about how we arrived at where we were. And certainly my journey in civil rights started in the 4th grade when we integrated the school systems where black children got to go to school with white children. And it was the Brown versus Boyd decision in 1954 where the United States Supreme Court said the schools must integrate with all deliberate speed. But they left it up to the local states and school districts to decide when that integration was to take place. So in many occasions it took 20, 30 years, 40 years. And so I remember it like it was yesterday, Lady Denta. We went literally across the tracks from South Lumberton, which was the predominantly black section of my small hometown, and we went to North Lumberton, the predominantly white section of the town that had the new school. And they had newer technology, newer books, newer facilities. And I remember one day on the school bus leaving North Lumberton, the white section, coming through their section of town, and I observed that they had new roads, they had new buildings, the grass and the trees were well manicured, everything was just pristine. And then we went across the tracks to the black section of town, my section of town, and I immediately noticed the potholes in the road. You saw the dilapidated buildings, like my elementary school that had lead paint peeling off the walls, and you had cars that were broken down. And I said to myself as a 9-year-old kid, why is it that on one side of town they seem to have so
Everything.
many resources, have it so good, and on our side of town we seem to have it so challenging? And my mother, bless her heart, she told me, she said, well, baby, the reason you get to go to the new school with the new facilities and new books and such is because of the NAACP and the Brown versus the Boyd lawsuit, and a lawyer named Thurgood Marshall,
Wow.
and who became our first United States Supreme Court justice who was black.
Wow.
And so I said right then, when I grow up, I'm going to be a lawyer like Thurgood Marshall.
Wow.
And I am going to fight every day to help people from my community and people who look like me have an equal opportunity at this American promise of life and liberty and equality for all and liberty for all. And from that day to this one, I wake up every morning with the same mission. I am never confused of what my objective is. It is to fight for the equality of our people.
That's a weight that you are carrying. You're carrying like a whole community, the black race on your shoulder. Because even when they hear your name, they're scared. They're like, what? Ben Crump? Oh my God, no. And I know you've had death threats because of the work that you are doing, because you are fighting for people that doesn't have a voice or we're not getting heard. How is that weight like?
I am fortunate to have a good team of people. I think we're all in this together. We all have a role to play in this struggle for equality and liberty for all. I think Natalie Jackson, who's my chief strategist for global affairs, especially as it relates to our work with Mother Africa and the diaspora, Professor Alfred, so many others are in this that help ease this load, help me to bear this cross as we choose to fight for our people. You know, it would be so easy to try to say, well, I've got my education, I got my success and so forth. So why do I have to continue to fight every day? And the answer is very simple. I look at our young people and I say unequivocally, they are worth the fight. It was never about me. It was never about material things. It was never about fancy degrees. It was always about the blessings that God has bestowed upon me to pass those blessings on. Harry Belafonte, the great American actor, when I was representing Trayvon Martin's family, the young kid who President Barack Obama said if I had a son, he would look a lot like Trayvon, who, if I never want to assume people know these stories. So Trayvon was the 17-year-old African-American kid with the hoodie walking home from the convenience store with a bag of Skittles and a can of iced tea. And he was profiled, pursued, and shot in his heart by the neighborhood watch volunteer in a place called Sanford, Florida. And Attorney Natalie Jackson and I were able to make his name become known all across the world. It became the #1 news story in the entire world in 2012. And so Harry Belafonte, we were at the NAACP Image Awards. And he saw us, and the actor Jamie Foxx was there.
Jamie.
He had just finished the movie Ray, of which he was given the Oscar. And Jamie Foxx was helping us in our campaign to get justice for Trayvon Martin. And Harry Belafonte, who had marched with Martin Luther King and the civil rights activists in the modern civil rights movement in America, told Jamie Foxx, always remember this. And he looked at me. He said, you all have to understand, what good is it to have influence if you don't use it when it matters most?
Wow.
And so that's why we fight for Trayvon Martin's. That's why we fight for George Floyd's. That's why we fight for Breonna Taylor's. That's why we fight for Tyree Nichols. That's why we fight for Sandra Bland's. That's why we fight for Eric Garner's. That's why we fight for the Ahmaud Arbery's. That's why we fight for so many of our people who have been killed unnecessarily and unjustifiably by the very people who were supposed to protect and serve them.
Yeah.
And that is why I believe God has given us the influence and continues to give us the influence, because he looks at us and he takes account.
Yeah.
What did you do
on
with
this
the
earth?
talents and the blessings that I gave you on this earth? And so, Lady Delta, I appreciate how you use your voice, because we try to use our voice for those who have no voice.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about all of these names, and you've won all of your cases, but still the people who do the wrong don't seem to end up in jail.
That is the battle. That is the battle. In fact, one of the gifts I have for you
is it your book?
Is my book, Open Season.
Yeah.
And it's about the legalized genocide of colored people, how the enemies of equality try to use the law as a weapon of oppression, not an instrument for good. And so that is our struggle, when we must always struggle to make the law apply equally. Thurgood Marshall, who's my personal hero, the first Supreme Court Justice of the United States, who was black, he said something very profound. He said when they wrote the American Constitution, they never intended for it to apply to black people. But because we are citizens, equal and worthy of all the rights as American citizens, we're going to make the Constitution ours anyway, despite them. And it's an ongoing struggle every day. And we must never get tired of that struggle. We must never get discouraged because of the struggle. We can never, ever be bewildered because of the struggle, because our ancestors, Frederick Douglass, the great abolitionist, said, we must never forget, without struggle, there can be no progress. So let's don't get depressed because of the struggle. We have to celebrate the struggle every day we wake up. We have to run to the front line, then to fight for our children, because as long as we're in the struggle, that means our children have a chance at a better future. Absolutely. And again, our children are so worth the fight.
Absolutely, they are. And in your book, you speak about how Black men only make up, 7 to 8% of the population in America, but yet 50% of them are in prison.
Yeah, well, 50% of them make up the population in prison. We taught President Muhammad and Minister Foreign Affairs Samuel and others, we talk about this need for racial justice, the fact that we must make the rest of the world see us not as insignificant, irrelevant, or criminals. We have to make them understand that Black lives matter and that we will not be second-class citizens. We will not be looked at as people who are not worthy of equal justice under the law. And we fight this struggle. I'm reminded of us having to understand that the Middle Passage and the transatlantic slave trade, as well as the colonialism, all had the same intent: to keep Black people oppressed, to keep us as inferior in their systems as possible. Right. And so even in 2025, we still have to fight this struggle to say that we won't let you use the laws to define us. As Martin Luther King said in his letter from the Birmingham jail, just because they tell us it's legal, that doesn't make it right. They said that everything Hitler did to the Jews in Germany was legal, but that didn't make it right. They said slavery was legal, but that didn't make it right. They said apartheid was legal, but that didn't make it right. And the way they kill us and the way they wrongfully convict us and how they lock us up with trumped up, and I do mean trumped up felony charges, is not right, even though they try to tell us it's legal. And so we must continue to hold a mirror to their face and use their words against them. And every constitution they have, say, these are your words. Look at the hypocrisy. You must acknowledge the hypocrisy, the racism, the discrimination. You must do it, and we cannot blink.
You know, you use the word genocide, the legalized genocide. Genocide is a powerful word. Why did you choose to use the word genocide?
We were intentional in the title of the book, and I'm unapologetic in the words I choose. Just as the enemies of equality are unapologetic in their white supremacist beliefs, we must be unapologetic defenders of Black life, Black liberty, and Black humanity, just as convicted and bold as they are in saying about their superiority and our inferiority. We must say, no, no. When you look at the record of the things that we have overcome, we don't think you all could overcome what our ancestors have overcome. So we will not let you have the high ground on this belief that you're better than us. You will not have the high ground on morality. No, we will challenge you at every step of the way. And that's why we're here trying to make sure they understand we're never going to let them forget of the things, the crimes against humanity that were inflicted on Africa and its children. And it's incumbent upon us to document that, not just for the sake of justice and accountability, but so our children will have a record of it. That's why we write books. That's why we attend conferences like Google. That's why we come to the Reparations Diaspora Summit here in Ghana, because we must make the record for our children yet unborn.
Some African Americans, they still don't want to be associated with Africans. One time when I was in the US having a conversation with a Black American, they're like, I'm not African. I don't feel like I'm African.
It is unfortunate because they must understand that it is from the vestiges of slavery and the effects of colonialism. Carter G. Woodson, the great American Negro historian, he wrote in his great essay, The Miseducation of the Negro, that once you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him to stay here or go yonder. Because if you can control his mind, if he still has shackles on his mind, he will go without being told. He said, you don't have to send him to the back door. He said, in fact, if there is no back door, he would cut one for his own special benefit because he is not in control of his thinking. So I say to those sisters and brothers who don't understand that Africa is not only where we are from, but Africa is in our soul. It's in our DNA. It's in our blood. It is in us. And they have to understand that you can be misguided by the white colonial powers, but they will always see you as African, no matter how you try to say that I am this, I am that. No, they always see you as a descendant from Africa. And so it goes back to the conversation how we first started it. If they don't respect Mother Africa, they will never respect any of the children of Africa.
It's true.
We are one people.
Absolutely.
And nobody can divide us but us. And nobody can unite us but us. So we have to follow the teachings of Marcus Garvey and Kwame Nkrumah, and so
W.E.
many,
Du Bois and all of every,
who understood that we're in this together, and the sooner we figure that out, the better we will be as a people.
If you had to say anything to the diaspora, because, you know, for me, I've been promoting the diaspora to come back, to at least experience Africa one time in their life, right?
Yes.
And also for us to reconnect with our people in the Caribbean.
Yes.
What do you think the power of the diaspora, what power do we have to change this narrative? And to also, you know, when you talk about one people, how do we connect and build on that?
It is not lost on me as a person who studies history, because if you understand your history, you can project what the future will hold. There's no doubt in my mind, in the next 50 years, Africa will be the center of the universe in every way. Economically, education, resources, healthcare, it will all stem from Africa. The past is prologue. You know, when we think about the Garden of Eden, the cradle of civilization, we know scientifically it all started in Africa. And everything that the powers that be have done to try to keep Africa oppressed, but they cannot do it as long as African children understand the majesty of Africa. And so what you do, what President Muhammad does, what the AU do, what we do, what Attorney Jackson and I trying to remind everybody who are of African descent, you must come back to your mother land to be renewed, to be reinvigorated, to be re-educated on what the future holds for our people. And it can be overstated. I get it. The Muslim faith, they visit Mecca for their inspiration. The Jewish faith, their citizens, they visit Israel for their inspiration. Africa, as Marcus Messiah Garvey said it best, we must come to Africa. And he talked about going back to Africa mentally and spiritually if we could not come physically. But we have technology with airplanes and so much technology that it is conceivable that all Africa's children can at least once make the journey back home. And I am so honored to be back home to learn and to share with Mother Africa, and all of her children can grow up together.
Absolutely. And you've been doing so much. We've listed some of the stuff that you've done, cases that you've won 12 million. Now, yet just a few weeks ago, and I actually did a broadcast. I broadcast to all my people. This is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, cases that you have won. 779 million.
Yes, ma'am.
How does that feel? How did that happen, Ben?
Well, we have made it our mission, Lady Denta, to raise the value of Black life. And with every case, we try to make sure we get more and more to say that we're going to make you value us, because once you value something, you respect it. And so that has always been the mission, to have our people looked at with the same respect that you look at your sisters and brothers with. And so when I think about the progression of Breonna Taylor, we set the record of $12 million in the silver suit, the most that had been paid out for a black woman killed by police. And then George Floyd, we made the city of Minneapolis pay $27 million, the most that had been paid out by police killing. And then Randy Cox in Connecticut, he was paralyzed, not killed, but he received the most compensation of $45 million, the highest that had ever been paid out for a police brutality case. And then we talk about Botham Jean, the young man who was in his apartment
that they
eating ice cream, minding his business, and the white police woman came into the wrong apartment, shot and killed him, and then tried to claim self-defense, even though she was in his house. And so she wasn't on duty, but we were able to get a $98.5 million verdict on that. And with each case, we try to continue to make it go up more and more. With Flint, Michigan, and the lead water, an issue that is problematic throughout the world, having clean and sustainable water to drink and bathe with and cook with. We were able to get a record of $611 million settlement for that mostly African American city of Flint, Michigan. And so then with this case here of Mr. Reverend Butler, we were able to have the jury understand that his wife and their family should receive $779 million by this company's actions and inactions. And so we continue to say, no, Black lives do matter, and we're going to demonstrate it every single time. And I would tell you, one of the ones that they're doing a documentary about now. There's two that we're doing with Malcolm X. We represent the family of Malcolm X, the civil rights icon who visited Ghana.
Yes, he did.
And also we represent the family of Henrietta Lacks. Henrietta Lacks is, we should all know, Oprah Winfrey did a movie about the immortal sales of Henrietta Lacks. And it's so interesting, Lady Delta, in that book, it acknowledged and educated many people for the first time that this black woman was the first person in the course of human history to have her cells be able to exist outside the human body. And not only did they exist outside the human body, but they regenerated every 24 hours. And they have been doing so since 1951. And I'm not surprised at all, Denta, that it was a black woman whose cells were the strongest to be able to exist. Because I was raised by a strong black mother. And in that historic case, that landmark case, that is also having a documentary that is going to be shown to the world.
That's amazing.
It is so profound because we talk about making them value black humanity. They had performed medical racism, as they did on many blacks in the 1950s. The Tuskegee syphilis experiment, the Mississippi appendectomy, where they were sterilizing black women so they couldn't have children, like Fannie Lou Hamer, who the famous civil rights icon said, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." Yes, ma'am. But at Johns Hopkins, the leading medical research center in the world at the time, they were literally using black people as guinea pigs, as lab rats. When we were doing our preparation for the case for Henrietta Lacks, we talked to a lot of senior citizens, older black people, and they remember from when they were children, their parents would tell them, do not go near Johns Hopkins Hospital after sundown, because they will snatch you up and experiment on you.
What?
They were the original body snatchers.
Oh my goodness.
And so with the case with Henrietta Lacks, we bought it 60 years later.
Wow.
They told us we were crazy, called us stupid for even having the audacity to bring the case. But like I said, we come from a people who make it a practice of doing things that have never been done before. And so, I'll say this about Henrietta Lacks. Pharmaceutical companies have made billions upon billions upon billions of dollars from this black woman's cells, her genetic materials, and her family had not received 1 red cent.
My goodness.
Until we sued them, and we went in that courtroom in Baltimore, Maryland, in the Eastern District Federal Court, and we laid out the theory for unjust enrichment to say that the criminal should not continue to benefit from the crime with no accountability. And it's a well-established legal principle that seems applicable to everybody except black people. And so we applied that principle, and they tried to argue that, well, you were outside the statute of limitations, because in every jurisdiction you have a certain amount of time that you must bring the lawsuit or you're forever barred.
Wow.
And so in America, it's normally 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
If you don't bring the lawsuit, then you're barred. And so in 1951, when they butchered her, they put radiation rods in her,
My goodness.
cut out her tissues, even though she had very treatable cancer in the early stages. And then they just sent her home. She lived 8 more months. And before she died, her family talked about how she would scream out in agony and pain in the middle of the night. This black woman who was married, who had 4 children, she was not illiterate as they want us to believe, she was not irrelevant, and she was not insignificant. They try to say those type of things to justify, you know, the inhumanity that they've done to us. And so the judge, as they called us crazy, said, how does Attorney Crump, and Professor Alfred was there in the courtroom with me because she wrote the legal treatise that gave us the foundation for this landmark case. The judge said, when they called Attorney Crump crazy for thinking that he could bring a case 60 years later, we objected. And the judge said, okay, we're not going to have anybody disparage anybody in this courtroom because we're all officers in the court. And so the pharmaceutical company's lawyer apologized, but he said, Judge, I don't even understand why we're here. How can they bring this case that far outside the statute of limitations? And so the judge looked and she said, well, Attorney Crump, do you have a response? And I said, well, you know, Your Honor, we've been in this courtroom all morning talking about how Henrietta Lacks, this black lady, is unprecedented. There's never been anything or anybody like her. And so I get it, Judge. The statute of limitations apply to even her family. And so we understand from 1951 to 2018 that the family is not entitled to a percentage of the profits from the pharmaceutical company and anything they made from using her cells, her HeLa cells as they are known, the genetic material. But as we said, Your Honor, Henrietta Lacks is unprecedented. There's never been another person like her on this earth before she came along. And as we said, her cells from this black woman were the first cells that could survive outside the human body. Not only could they survive, but they would regenerate every 24 hours.
My goodness.
So, Your Honor, we're not asking for anything from 1951 to 2018. But like we said, those cells regenerate every 24 hours. And those ones that regenerated yesterday, Your Honor,
that's what we're fighting for.
We expect a percentage of the profits from all of those. And the judge said,
Oh my God.
And so 9 months.
To one of your court cases.
So 9 months later, we serve a God that sits high and looks low. and she ruled in our favor.
My
And for the
goodness.
first time,
In
Henrietta
history.
Lack's black family was able to recover from a pharmaceutical company. And now we're suing every pharmaceutical company who have made over
Money.
$100 billion using her sales to say that her family deserves a percentage of those profits.
God bless you, Ben. Oh my goodness. Like, Ben, you know, when they give out the money, say, you know, 779 million has been given to the family. Do the family get justice?
Well, it's a measure of justice.
Okay.
But we believe, as we argued with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, that black Americans are entitled to full justice, not partial justice. Okay. We want to make sure that we have civil justice under the 7th Amendment of the United States, where you feel if you have been wronged, you can bring your arguments in court and have a jury of your peers settle the controversy on the civil matter. That is for monetary compensation and accountability. But then you have criminal culpability, and that is we want the people who kill us or commit crimes against us to be held accountable as well. And then what Attorney Natalie Jackson and I have done in many of our cases, we get legislative justice. I mean, that affects everybody. You know, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, the Ahmaud Arbery hate crime law, the laws that say because of this tragedy, we now are fighting to prevent this from happening to anybody else in this situation again. And that's what we call full justice: civil justice, criminal justice, and legislative justice.
Okay. Any of your cases that have made you cry, that you've gone home and you're just like...
Many of them.
Any particular one?
Well, I think that they're all tragic. I still think so often about Trayvon Martin, because the thing about Trayvon that was so heartbreaking is black people in America regrettably had gotten used to the police, you know, brutalizing us and killing us, and far too often. But with Trayvon's case, it was a private citizen who, because of the stand your ground law, could come up with some subjective fear in his mind and then say, well, I had the right to shoot and kill our child because the law said that I could do it if I felt threatened. And so now you had any Tom, Dick, and Harry private citizen who could kill our children and try to escape accountability. And so I often think about how we have to try to make sure we are slowing down these hashtags. I mean, we have to, my prayer every day is that we can shut down the police brutality division of our law firm. I have 20 officers all around the U.S., and I pray every day that we could shut down that police brutality division, because that means our children like Trayvon Martin and Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, they would get to live out the fulfillment of their destiny that God has for them, and not be killed unnecessarily, unjustifiably, or unconstitutionally.
I love that. I love that. And thank you so much for joining me. Now that you're here, if you had to invest in Ghana, what would you invest in?
Well, I with these blessings, we try to use them to reinvest in the culture of our people. And we define culture as anything that helps the survival and the enhancement of our people. And so I'm starting to do a lot more business. We've started a financial technology platform that actually launches on January the 20th, because I understand now more than ever black people, whether in Africa, whether in the UK, whether in the US, whether in the Caribbean, that we must be a self-sustaining
Absolutely.
community.
Absolutely.
And nobody's going to save us but us. And that first starts with a strong black economic base. And you have to understand that we talk about civil rights. Well, we have to understand that economic justice is a civil rights. We have to understand that access to capital is a civil rights. We have to understand that financial freedom is a civil right. Because once you have financial freedom, it makes all the other freedoms that much more obtainable. When you have financial freedom, it makes access to quality health care that much more obtainable. You have financial freedom, it makes access to education that much more obtainable. You have financial freedom, it makes access to home ownership that much more obtainable, so we can give generational wealth to our children. So I understand that we must continue to evolve and be more resourceful. We must think thoughts that we haven't thought about, to say that we must and we can do better to become a self-sustaining organization, community, where we don't need them to come and save us. No, we're all we need. One people, one mother, one truth.
This interview could go on, but Ben has an event that we're all going to, actually. And I just want to say God bless you, Ben, for the work that you're doing.
And allow me to give you our Black History calendar.
Oh,
we have to continue to teach our children Black history.
I love it. And I'm so happy because every interview that I hear you speak on, you talk about the next generation. The next generation, the next generation.
Yes.
And the next generation is the future.
Amen.
And thank you so much for leaving blueprints of the work that you have done. You make us so proud, and we will keep praying for you, Ben. We'll keep praying for you.
Queen, you make us proud. Thank you for your leadership and your enthusiasm and your zest to uplift our people.
Thank you.
Now more than ever.
Amen. Thank you.